Someone asked, what is golden purpose methodology? So, golden purpose is the methodology we use at ColorJar to go through and define positioning strategy. So, I touched on this very briefly in my opening, but for those of you who are coming a little bit late or more interested, I'm going to dive in a little bit more now. But golden purpose methodology is a process that we created at ColorJar. It becomes our lens for design ultimately, but what it does is it figures out for a company how they fit into the world. So we look at three main things. The first thing is their remarkable ability and how they stand out in the world. What's remarkable about them. We're huge believers when going in to define remarkable ability that you've got to lead with one thing. And this is a thing that I've seen be really difficult for big companies and startups alike, is settling in on what's your one leading edge, your one leading benefit. The mistake I see again and again are the companies who try to feed you with 7 leading benefits at once. And the example I use to explain why this is a bad idea to lead with multiple things at once rather than one thing is, imagine if I wrote on a tennis ball one marketing message or one key value, and I toss that to you. It'd be very easy for you to catch that tennis ball. But as soon as I break out 3 different tennis balls and write a different value or different marketing message on each of those 3 different tennis balls and toss all 3 to you at once, what happens? You bobble it, you drop it, maybe you catch one, maybe you drop them all. We're in an age of information overload. So the amount of information that's flying at us day in and day out has been on an absolute hockey stick growth for the last 15 years, and it has really accelerated in the last 5 years. We're completely overwhelmed by the amount of information that's being thrown at us each day, which means that it's more and more unlikely that someone's going to discover you. And they're not going to take, if you're lucky enough that one of the bits of information that finds their way to their eyes is your message, you need to make sure that it's really carefully thought out and that it's not too complex. So you've got to choose one thing to lead with. So I'll give you an example of leading with one thing. If you think about the automotive industry, and I like this example because everyone has a very universal understanding of what brands stand for in automotive. So think about the luxury car segment, and let's compare Mercedes, BMW, and Volvo. If you go on the street right now and you stop 10 people and you ask them, hey, what does Mercedes mean to you? Or what's Mercedes all about? One of the first words that's going to come out of their mouth is the word luxury. It's not by accident. Mercedes has spent billions of dollars pounding that into our heads year after year. And then if you ask someone about BMW and what's BMW all about, one of the first words they're going to say something about performance or driving machine. If you ask people about Volvo, they're going to say something about safety. And it's almost universal. These companies are become very good at leading with one thing, but rewind, go back to the first example, the Mercedes. Isn't the Mercedes have great performance and is really awesome to drive? Yes. Aren't Mercedes incredibly safe? Yes. And they pepper in commercials here and there, highlighting those benefits, but above all, they're luxury, luxury, luxury. They do a really good job leading with one thing. Now, the second thing that we focus on with the golden purpose methodology at ColorJar is audience. So we want to figure out who is your audience, what do they look like, and where do they live. So for audience, we want to think about who are your 3 or 4 best customers, and then we create user personas around that. So we give them names. It could be Marcy the mom, and she's this age, and she has 3 kids, and she lives in the suburbs of this city, and these are her favorite websites, and this is what kind of music she listens to. And the reason that we go through and create these personas, these biographies, is that it helps us be more empathetic. So we're better able to look at the problem through the eyes of our customer rather than through our own eyes. And it's a very valuable thing to do. The other thing that we believe about audience, so this is addressed more at the startups or addressed at a big brand who's launching something new, is not to think about your goal for how many users you want. So rather than thinking, hey, I need 100,000 users. It's like filling up a giant football stadium and thinking about, all right, how am I going to fill up the football stadium? Instead, we have people focus on, where do you find the super fan? Where do you find the guy who's going to show up in -10 windshield weather with his shirt off and his face painted and wearing a crazy wig? If you can think about trying to get 15 or 20 or 30 of those people as your customers at the beginning and get them into the stadium, they're eventually, because of how passionate and vocal they are, they're eventually going to bring the rest of the stadium into them, or into the stadium as well. So we focus on not how do you get 100,000 users, but how do you find the super fan? And that's what we think about when we think about defining an audience. The third thing we think about in golden purpose methodology at ColorJar is the competitive landscape. We think about what area or piece of turf can your company or product or campaign really claim and own and defend. So we take a hard, long look through the competitive landscape and figure out, how are they representing themselves? What's their one key tennis ball that they're promoting to the world? What are they known for? And where do we feel like we can add unique value and carve out a place for ourselves? One mistake I see time and time again from entrepreneurs especially is when they think that whatever they're doing is so new and revolutionary that they don't have any competition. So if you're one of those people and you're sold that, you know, I don't have competition, my thing's different, then your competition is alternatives. So the world has gotten along reasonably well without your product or innovation. What are people doing as an alternative behavior? And that's what you have to compete against. So if they're doing nothing, then that means you have to teach them to do a new thing. So think about, you know, what alternatives do people have? Another thing about launching products that relates to competition is ask yourself about the problem that you're solving. So are you trying to solve a problem that already exists and put something in place that makes people's existing behavior easier? Or are you trying to teach them, this is how you ought to be doing something? If you did it like this, everything would be better. Teaching someone a new behavior is way more difficult than providing a solution or a better way to do something for an existing behavior. And so ask yourself that question, am I solving an existing problem or am I trying to teach someone something new? Solving an existing problem, you automatically know that you're going to have value if you're solving a problem. So look at the competitive landscape, what competitors exist, what alternatives exist. So I know that's a lot, but the center of those three things, what's your remarkable ability? What's the one tennis ball that you're bringing to the world and leading with? Who is your audience? Who is that super fan that's going to be the first one in the stadium and bring everyone else in with them? And then third, what does your competitive landscape or alternative landscape look like? And how are you going to stand out? At the center of those three things is the positioning hook. We call that your golden purpose. The importance of that is that now you have a strategic, a North Star to march towards. So rather than making decisions on gut feel, you can weigh your decisions against that golden purpose positioning alignment. So if you're building a web product or an app, you could say, rather than saying, oh, this seems like a pretty cool feature, let's build it, now you can look at it in a much more scientific way, and that you could say, well, what does Marcy the mom think of this? Would she ever use this feature? Yes or no? Or is this really in alignment with our golden purpose? Is this inching us closer towards the ideal we have of ourselves and how we want to change the world through our remarkable ability? Or is one of our competitors already doing this feature and are we ever going to outdo them at it? If the answer is no to most of those, then it's probably not a feature worth building. The golden purpose also helps people with their social media, press, marketing. Everything needs to be in alignment with how you're positioned in the world. Our tactical output at ColorJar happens to be building custom websites and apps, but marketing partners, management team, employees, everyone should be marching towards the direction of golden purpose. So that's what golden purpose is, and positioning strategy and how we go about it at ColorJar.